Psychiatry for a Mad World. An extract from the book. Attitudes to mental illness. In the UK, attitudes towards people with mental health problems have become slightly worse in recent years. In a 2007 study by the British Office for National Statistics, ONS, people were asked to assess the statement, quote, "People with mental illness are a burden on society," end quote. The percentages for people disagreeing fell from 81% in 1994 to 78% in 2007. The list of famous high achievers shows that people are making a dangerous generalisation, but more than a fifth of people stick with this misconception, maintaining the stigma. Despite our list of famous people who have often flourished with mental illness, in 2007 there was still just over a fifth of people who agreed with the statement, quote, "There is something about people with mental illness that makes it easy to tell them from normal people," end quote. It may be true for a particular person with an illness, but the conclusion can't be extended to such a wide range of illnesses. For example, people with bipolar affective disorder are often marked not by some overt failure, but rather more by exceptional creativity. Work opportunities remain limited for people with mental health problems. The study revealed that often people with mental illness will be excluded from higher work positions. In 2007, around 13% of people agreed with the statement, quote, "People with mental illness should not be given any responsibility," end quote. If that attitude had been universally accepted, then Abraham Lincoln, Winston Churchill, Benjamin Disraeli and Florence Nightingale would all have struggled for work. And 34% of people believe that those with mental health problems should not have the same rights to a job as anyone else. Fear still resides in some people when they think about those with mental illness. The same report found that 42% of people disagreed with the statement, quote, "People with mental illness are far less of a danger than most people suppose," end quote. A figure which had increased by 4% since 1994. 37% of respondents agreed with the statement, quote, "I would not want to live next door to someone who has been mentally ill," end quote. This would surely be an alarming figure for anyone who has experienced mental illness. 34% of people thought a mentally ill person is prone to violence, despite the lack of evidence relating to most mental illnesses. Studies have found that fewer than 5% of people who kill a stranger have signs of mental illness. People often underestimated how common mental health problems are. The proportion of people in the UK who will experience a mental health problem at some point in their life has been estimated at around 1 in 4. Of the respondents, 64% thought that the figure was 1 in 10 or less. In fact, the government's statistics will provide an underestimate of the situation. Some illnesses, such as personality disorder, will not figure, as people with the disorder are unlikely to report that they have a problem. I estimate the figure for those experiencing a mental illness at some point in their life to be closer to 10 in 10, as I take a more rigorous Zobbian view of mental illness, but more of this to follow. Regarding integration of mentally ill people in society, 25% of people believe they have the right to exclude someone with mental illness from their community. We saw a grassroots example of this worrying statistic in the case of our odd puppeteer charity worker. In fact, in that example, 4 out of the 5 people present shunned the puppeteer from the pub. I believe this example of the woman in the pub hints at a possible flaw in the statistics reached by the ONS. The problem is that when people are asked about these mental health issues, the questions strike a moral chord. We know that we should be tolerant towards others, but while we want to be seen to be tolerant and kind, hidden deep down is the desire to be cruel and selfish. So, in answering these moral questions, the respondents will have a tendency to paint themselves in a good light and pretend that they are kind and compassionate towards those afflicted. It is likely that many of the respondents told lies. This is what psychologists call social desirability bias, the inclination of questionnaire respondents to answer falsely in order to show themselves in a better light. There is a real chance that because of this deep-seated selfishness and cruelty, the situation of stigma may be worse than the ONS study would have us believe.